All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am here with my friend Innocent, who's joining us in Germany. And I'm actually going to let him introduce himself. But before, I just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction to him because I'm very honored that he is here and willing to talk to us. I actually watched Innocent's story when I was 16 years old. So that was 11 years ago. And as a 16-year-old living in America, I had never heard about this situation of child soldiers. And it really opened up my eyes to things that are going on in the world that I had no idea about. And then years and years and years later, I find myself in Uganda getting to hang out with Innocent and see where he comes from and hang out with some of our mutual friends that we have there, and just continually inspired by him and how he has chosen to live his life. And I think that we're going to learn a lot from him, and I'm excited to dig into this conversation. So Innocent, I'll hand the floor over to you and let you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks a lot. That was amazing. Yeah, my name is Innocent, like you said, Opwonya Innocent, and I was born in northern Uganda, specifically from Gulu, where I was born in '89, and of course I grew up there, and I was born in the middle of an ongoing war by the Lord Resistance Army. And it felt real, it felt surreal, because when you're born in something, this is the definition of peace. It was the definition of being loved. Hearing the gunshots every day became a part of my life. It became a normality. Until one day in 2010 when I got abducted. And for that part, I will come back to it later. But since then, I can only tell you that I moved on. I met a young girl from Germany whom we got married to each other 2 years ago. And since then, I moved also to Germany, where I continued with my school. I just finished my master's in economics policy. And yeah, so that is pretty much all about me. I live in Germany now, and yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So you spoke a little bit about, at a young age, you grew up in war, and it was essentially normal for you. You didn't really know much else. And so hearing these gunshots was, just part of everyday life. In A Long Way Gone by Ishmael Bia, he talks about how war seemed really far away from him, because until it came to his village, until he saw it face to face, he didn't realize that there was this war going on. But
Yeah.
different than that, you actually knew that war was going on ever since you were young. So what, for those who might not know about the war that was going on in Uganda, what was the fear of boys your age?
Well, the fear is never something that you can easily imagine unless you've been abducted. Before I was abducted, basically I didn't even know, because I see my mother, I see my father, and I felt the sense of protection. I felt like it was a normal world. So basically I didn't have any fear in my mind. I just knew if in the middle of the night we have to run when we hear gunshot, like we do always with my parents, and early morning we come back home. When I see my father, I know everything was okay. But that changed a lot. The first time I was abducted, and of course the first time in my life that I really witnessed somebody get killed, this completely changed my mind. It changed I didn't know the person I was anymore. When they handed me that gun, I don't know what really came on my mind, but the first thing I had was that I wanted revenge. I saw the faces of the guys who killed my father, and in my mind, I just want to carry this gun and revenge. I was so ready to use it, but as soon as they gave me in my hand, I was overwhelmed with fear. I didn't even know which part, if I touched, was going to turn and shoot me or shoot the next person to me. So really, that was my biggest fear, to first even operate the gun, leave alone going to face another person standing with a gun on the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. So it was more a question of if I make it through the next day, or if that day was going to be my very last. So it was every single day you wake up, you don't know what is going to happen next. But you only hope. You only hope that you make it through and you see another day.
And how old were you when this all happened?
I just turned 10 years old when it happened, and yeah, it was quite an interesting age. And I remember when my father, before he was taken away from me, when he asked them if he could carry me along, and they showed him a boy who was much younger than me and said, "You see, this boy is also walking. How special do you think your son is?" So when you see somebody as young as 7, 8, and you are 10 years old, then you realize you don't have any ground to complain. Yeah.
And so I guess I can dig into some of the questions that we've asked, that our community has asked you. And so the first one is, what is the most important thing that you would like people to understand and know about child soldiers? Because it's something that a lot of people in America and around the world still don't realize is happening. So what is the most important thing that you want people to understand about your experience and about the experience of, they say, 200,000 other individuals who have experienced this?
Well, these are two words involved. When you say child soldiers, you are talking in terms of a child and a soldier. Now, the separation is clear, and I know under the Convention of the United Nations, they define a child as any human below the age of 18. And this gets me to a point where I would also want to say that it is so sad that when I moved to Germany, I tried to understand the point, some Western countries, because once you're inside it, then you try to understand the system, how it works. And I try to understand a country like UK, also Germany, or I don't know, there are a couple of them like Egypt, why they are still recruiting people below the age of 18. Because I believe anyone who is below the age of 18 and is holding a gun is already a child soldier. Now, the difference with me come that I was forced to hold this gun. I was forced at a way tender age. But I also believe that a war story, a story of a child with a gun in his hand, is a story of suffering. There's no end profit at the end. It's a story of suffering to either party, but most importantly, we should always know that a child with a gun is going to have no choice but to follow whatever he's told. Because these are people, the age limit, which is so easy to brainwash. You do what you are told. 1 or 2 lines of threats is enough to keep you so focused, to let you forget about whatever happened in your family, to let you focus that you're either going to mess up, they kill you, or you obey and you live for another life. So basically, what I would love so much for everyone to know is that a child soldier is a kid whose childhood has been taken away from, who has been forced to become an adult, to live the life of an adult without a choice.
And do you think that the reason that Joseph Kony and the Lord's Resistance Army was taking young children, was that because of what you were talking about, of the potential for brainwashing?
I do believe so highly. In fact, as I grew up and tried to understand the war, it's a more complicated war that, yes, luckily is not in Uganda anymore, but that's not, I wouldn't even use the word lucky, because it's still in other African countries. It's still in Central African Republic, killing children, killing a lot of women, raping them, and doing all kinds of things. The war of Joseph Kony started as a demonstration, according to what my grandparents told me, and my mother told me as well, that it started as a demonstration when the government of Museveni, who is still in power up to now, took over in 1986. And so they took over, and there was a lot of tribal conflict. There are truly people where I come from, the northern people, were always seen as, the energetic people who are as good for manual labor as opposed to mental labor. So the Western people were employed in the offices, the office jobs, while the Northern people were forcefully recruited to fight. And if you refuse, they kill your family. So you have nothing left but the anger to go and join and fight for the government. So Joseph Kony took over through his niece, Alice Lakwena, to demonstrate, and he recruited people, and people believed in him. But when the government responded with force, that's when people started running away and said, we cannot demonstrate anymore. When they're going to use light bullets on us, when they're going to tear gas us, when they're going to kidnap us and take our children in different locations we don't know. But because he couldn't control the adults, he resorted into taking their kids as a revenge, as a way of letting them know that he has not yet given up. So he take these kids, you do exactly as you told. I remember when he came on our Passover after 2 weeks of training, on the day that I got my gun, he told us, you have to obey the rules, only 3 rules. No listening to a radio, you should not be caught with a cell phone, and always be the first once you're given an instruction. A radio and a cell phone is simply because they were doing amnesty cooperation in Uganda, trying to ask for these child soldiers to come home and get amnesty, encouraging them that nobody was going to be charged or sent to prison because of what they didn't choose to do, but they had to do anyway. And so he didn't want us to know about this. And we believe him when he told us that as you escape, you're going to be, killed, or they will lock you up for the rest of your life. So basically, he took kids because it's easy to brainwash them. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you essentially escape or get out of your situation as a child soldier?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Actually, I tried my first escape and it didn't go well. I was given a gun, and after, of course, some time with them already, we had a system where they set you up. 5 people per week, they will be patrolling. They call us night guards. Every five child soldiers in a week. The rotation goes until every child soldier has patrol. And so it was my turn this week. And on this fateful day, I said, see, we are 4 down on the ground and 1 on the watchtower. We are just, I'm standing by myself, walking around free, looking over the cam and seeing if there's an attack. I blow the whistle and let the people know, wake up the center. And so I tried to run, but I would say I was stupid enough and naive, because the uniform was almost the size, like 2 times my size, and I had the gum boots. So I tried to run and I couldn't run fast. And the boy on the watchtower saw me and blew the whistle. So the center woke up. I was caught. They came and locked me until the morning parades, where we had every day a morning parade where they brought all of us together and we were given commands. And so the question was either get shot, because I was tied on a V-shaped tree like this. So usually this is the point of a firing squad. And it was a question if I get shot or I get beaten. And of course, a lot of kids pleaded with the commander that it was my first offense. And I cannot tell you honestly what went on my mind at that point. The only thing I was embroiling is anger, a lot of anger, because I just needed a gun. And in my mind, I thought, if I'm going to die, I will not die alone. I want to die with someone else. I wanted at least someone else who has been oppressing me to die along with me. And this whole feeling just disappeared after my beating. They understood that it was my first offense. I was given beatings. I would be happy to show you both of my knees, my legs. I still have big wounds. And it's funny because my wife sometimes asks me, you have to start wearing shorts. It's too hard. And I don't feel like I can wear shorts because of these scars. They reminds me a lot of it. And the beating was on my elbows and on my legs. And I have no idea how I made it through. But that doesn't lose the feeling that I want to see my mother. I want to tell my mother that my father got shot on my face, trying to help me, try to carry me when I cried for help. I wanted to be at least let her know that she didn't lose it all. And this is when I tried again the second time. My unit was sent to northern Uganda to abduct girls and get food. And through the girls, this is how the commanders from the other camps come and choose their wives. And so I was made a second in command of my team. A unit always had 15 child soldiers. 1 top commander, and my commander was 14 years old. Then I was second in command. So he told me when we reached this one home and said, 5 of us, 5 of the soldiers plus me, is meaning himself. So 6 of them would go inside, get the girls, the fine, and whatever food or money. The money was for us, we share. The food we take back for the camp. And then me and the other 8 boys, we would make a circle around the home and provide protection. And I didn't have to think twice this time. I just took off. But I knew I couldn't run, so I didn't run so far and branch in the nearby bush and hid myself there. And I had some footsteps running through the same path. I believe they were the one running after me. But they ran past, and early morning I came to the next home, not the one where we looted. And then I pleaded with the woman, whom after seeing me with all the grass cuts and I had my guns with a cross of bullets. And she first collapsed, so I had to wait for her to really get to her senses, and I explained to her who I really am. Because a lot of times we just go there to arm them, to give them, and so she thought I was there to kill her maybe. And so I told her, I'm just as desperate of help as you are right now. I just need some help. But before she could believe me, I had to dismantle my gun, remove the bullets, because I also feared if I give her a gun full of bullets, maybe she would turn it on me. I didn't know. And so that is how she helped me call the government soldiers. And you know, it's funny because even after the government soldiers took me with their patrol vehicles, they brought me back to Gulu Barracks, where I spent 3 days. The first question they asked me was if I wanted to continue fighting with the government. And by then, there were a lot of young people, after escaping, you come and join the government army. And this was not one of the options I had in my mind. In my mind, I just want to go and see my mother, tell her what I had to tell her, and that was it. But then they didn't let me go after 3 days of interrogation because they thought maybe I was spying for the rebels. They wanted to get the truth. So they took me to World Vision Counseling Center. And from there, they sent the announcement at the end of the week with the name of newly escaped child soldiers. And my mother heard over the radio, and she came and I met her the first time. And that felt like, I don't know, it just felt so different.
Yeah.
So different.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine that feeling of you finally escape, and then your first fear is these people think that I'm the bad guy. You know, these people think that I'm gonna do something to them, and so you went to World Vision counseling, and then we're connected again with your mother. And then what did, returning back to civilian life look like? Because I mean, in the story that we read in the book that we've been reading through, it was really challenging for Ishmael to go back into society and to even accept help because of the brainwashing that he had. And you talked about like this anger that you had, and I'm sure that didn't automatically go away. So another question that we received in was, what were some of the challenges that you faced when you went back into civilian life, and how did you handle those? How did people help you along the way?
Wow, that's a nice one. You know, after the counseling, we were given, of course, they teach you the value of love and to love yourself, and all these things sounds like a foreign language to me at some point, because I felt like it was so repetitive, yet it meant so little at that point. I just felt like I just felt like I didn't fit in so much there, because the basic thing is in the LRA, if you want something and you have a gun floating on you, you go to the nearby Sudanese people. If you point a gun at somebody, they're going to give you what you need. If you want food, you go and point a gun at somebody, they will give you food. And we had to follow a timetable where you eat for breakfast around, I think it was around 10, then you have to wait for lunch and supper. Then everything was so different. It was hard to just directly get into it and start clicking. But that wasn't even that challenging. It became so challenging now thinking about how to get back to school. My father was the breadwinner of the family, my mother without education or job. So everything felt like it was gone. Everything was thrown away. And the hope was all gone again. And I started asking myself what really was the meaning of escaping. I asked myself, like, what is the benefit? How has it benefited me or my family? Just sitting there looking at each other, worrying about if we're going to eat for that day. But then eventually I started night commuting at Nuasak, and through the night commuting, this is how I met the filmmakers of Invisible Children, who, like a lot of people who came to take stories to make their own profits out of it, or their own ideas, or whatever it is they wanted. That I was interviewed by thousands of people. And so when these boys from Invisible Children came and interviewed me, I just said, all I need is something simple. If you want me to give you my story, I need you to buy me this. And I wanted beans. I wanted them to buy me beans. And indeed they did, which I still laugh at it when I thought of. Because I said, in exchange for my story, you buy beans. and I sent it to my mother. If you do this, I will give you my story. And when they did it, I kept my words. I opened up and talked to them about my story. But then they told me they were going to put me in school. And to me, this just entered from here and passed away from this side, because a lot of people told me the same song. But indeed they did. Even though they were not yet settled, they moved me to a school in Kampala through the family of the first family, the brother of the first family, called St. Michael High School. And I thought, because we were taught from World Vision that if you share your story, if you open up to people, you get help. People get to love you for who you are. And I tried to share with a few people from my high school at St. Michael. And the first few reactions I had was when people called me the name of Joseph Kony, when people called me Kony. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, this is the man I equally hate, just like anyone else. Mm-hmm. I hate him, you hate him, we all have a mutual interest here. And calling me him made me feel so offended. And I got in a fight at some point where, of course, I was threatened by school administration with expulsion. So luckily, I had to leave that school. I complained to to the boys, and they said, you know what? You just finished senior 4, we shift you to another school. And I learned one thing: never open your mouth unless you know the person you're talking to. So I went to Muiri, where everyone knew me completely different, with a different identity, different person. Nobody knew the real me until when I was one semester left. That's when I opened to a guy called Ambrose from Lera. And I told him who I really was. And he was surprised, because I kept it to myself all this time, because I didn't want to go through the time of people calling me names that don't belong in me. And so that was the most challenging part, but eventually also it taught me how to, handle situation, how to let out my inner emotion and see things in a different way. But that didn't help 100%, I wouldn't say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So for those of you who are watching who aren't aware of the situation that was going on in Uganda, and it's really still going on in parts of Central Africa, Joseph Kony is a warlord who was abducting young boys to fight in his army. And so, I mean, them calling you Joseph Kony, like my blood started boiling when you were saying that, because that evil is just not something I would ever associate with you. So you go to school, and you talked about how you met these boys from Invisible Children. If you guys don't know the organization Invisible Children, that's actually how Innocent and I know each other and are connected through that organization. And so these 3 boys come to Uganda, and they meet you, and you exchange your story for beans to send back to your mom. And you end up going to school and getting an education. And when does life start to really get better? When do you feel like you're starting to heal?
I felt like life started getting better when I saw, because when my dad was taken away, my mother was pregnant to my sister, to my little sister. And the time that life started getting better is when we could afford to put her in school as well. Like, this is the one thing that I think I can never be. There's nothing maybe in this world that can ever make me up here. And I'm thinking of the fact that she's actually finishing next year and becoming a teacher finally. And she did a practical this year, and I still feel like it's a miracle, because I pull her up, and I move on, and I got this scholarship, and I also talked to Invisible Children, and I said, please, you need to help my sister, put her in school. And they said, it doesn't work like that. And I understood, but eventually life changed a lot, because I opened up and I joined a team of other beneficiaries who had a similar story. I joined a family of people who really spoke my language, who were equally in need of the help I was in need of, that I didn't know. I felt like I was okay all along, until when I met people in my own status and we started sharing. Then we really I felt personally how the power of sharing, how everything comes out, and sometimes you just want to explode. You really want to explode. And I remember when I first returned before I got the scholarship, and things were getting so hard, and seeing my mother trying to get another man, and he's abusive and all that, because just my mother needed somebody who can stand by her and raise me and my little sister. And things got a little bit tough for me. At some point, I realized life was actually meaningless, and I just wanted to see, I just wanted to see a way out. I wanted to see a shortcut to it. And then just meeting these people made me realize that maybe there's something more than that. But that was not even the point. The point just became more powerful when I see my sister every time, and I ask myself, after me, after I'm gone, then how is she going to be? Who is, like, somebody's going to mess with her? Maybe the LRA will come and take her away again. So for me, this was the main reason that kept me moving every single day. I just wanted to give something that I didn't have for my sister. And in fact, I feel like, 50% I managed it with my mother, but that's the other 50%, God knows, it wasn't supposed to be. And if leave alone that, I just felt the poor, because even when Invisible Children invited me to come and speak in the US, I remember I sat with Julie, the Ugandan director, and I told her straight in her face, I said, I'm not going to speak about nothing to anybody, to nobody. I'm not going anywhere, and I want to stay, finish my bachelor degree, and get home and get a job. Because that's how desperate I was to get a job and start helping my family. So they insisted, and it reached a point that Julie got angry with me. If you talk to her, she will still admit that she could not believe how many Ugandans would do anything, including ministers, anything to go to America, because that's like a dreamland. That's like the final dream spot for everybody. But for my situation was different. Not like I don't love America. It's just that.
Okay, seems like you've been cut off. So I think we're going to stop this recording, and then if I get him back, I will bring him back on. We're back. We figured it out.
I hope it didn't disorganize your thing.
Technology, it never works when you want it to, but thanks for your patience. Okay, so before we got cut off, you were talking about how you had been invited to come and speak in America, but you actually didn't want to do that. You just wanted to finish your studies and you wanted to support your family. And so what happened to encourage you to come to the States, and because you did end up in the States speaking and inspiring people all over the US, but what really urged you to do that?
I would say that it reached a point where Julie had to remind me where my school fees come from. She had to tell me that, that same university you want to go to, the money is what you're going to raise. Without the money, we will not be able to pay. So you're doing this fundraising, not just for you, but for the other kids as well. You have to think about it. What if we run sort of fund that means you are not going to finish anyway? So it reached that point, and then I just said to, it's still, even when I went for the visa interview, it wasn't like I was lively. I was just not willing to go. But eventually when I went and started speaking, and I met all these exciting people, and they were at the airport waiting for us, and they were really, really happy to welcome us, the interns from San Diego. And then I felt like, okay, maybe it's a great thing. And then through the process of the whole thing on the road and talking to people and seeing how inspired people get, these young American kids from high schools, how they really, really take a lot from every single thing that we say. And they, some, of course, I got some weird questions too, but like 99% really amazing questions from young kids who want to do better. We're asking how they can do, what they can do to change the world, how they can start, where they can start from. And then this really also, it was a learning experience for me. I learned a lot about the world as a whole. I learned a lot to see the world from the American perspective and outside Africa, outside my small town of Gulu. And I also learned to see where my experience as a boy from Gulu lies at the world stage. How far does it take me? Do I really know what I want? Do I know how the world actually works? And so I think this was great. And I met, of course, really a lot of amazing young people, amazing friends that I kept in touch with for a while. And a lot of young people got inspired when I spoke, and they say, they want to do something, they want to change the world, they want to do this and that. And of course, I've been following you a lot, by the way, and you have no idea. I just don't want to keep liking everything you post, because then you would start complaining that I'm stalking you. But I feel like, you're doing a great job, really amazing. You inspire a lot of people to do better. I'm one of them. I ask myself, this is somebody who didn't have to do it. This is somebody who don't have a reason to do it, but they do it because they believe if one person can change something, can change where they're standing, and the other person change where they're standing, that is changing the world already. If we can start by where we are, then we move forward, and we can do it out of love, not out of what we want to take back. We are changing the world, and this is what you do. When I followed the December you are doing and the kidnapped girls, and then the first memory in my mind is that, every time they talk about child soldiers, they talk about the young boys who were abducted, the young boys who escaped. When we talk about child soldiers in Gulu, nobody mentioned about these girls, that we, the boys who have the guns, are forced to go and take from our people. And these commanders choose their wives out of these girls. And then I look at my sister every time and I say, this could be my sister, it could be anyone so close to me. So really, what you're doing is just keep doing it. Really. Yeah.
Thank you. I am just constantly inspired by the December community, that they're willing to do exactly what you said. They're willing to look at what they have to offer and listen to what other people are sharing with them, and then really like take action. And I mean, I look at you and you're someone who has inspired me since I was 16 years old. And to see where you are today, you just, turn in your thesis, and when I met you in Uganda, you wanted to be a politician so that you could change things. And the reason that you're so inspiring to me isn't because of the trauma that you survived, though that is amazing, but it's what you've chosen to do and how you've chosen to live your life since then, that is changing the world and has changed the world for so many people that you came and spoke to in the US, and continues to today. And before we end, which we're not ending yet, but before we end, we have to talk about your book too, because that is a thing. So prepare for that. But leading into this next question that we were asked is, you talk about how there are things that we can do that actually make a difference. And before we started this call, we talked a little bit about this like white savior complex, and this idea that Westerners can assert their own beliefs about how to solve these problems. And, we at December are always trying to look at things through the lens of like, how can we help in a way that actually helps and doesn't hurt?
Exactly.
What would you say to us that we can do as both a community of advocates, but also as a society? What day-to-day things can we do to advocate for an end to, the use of child soldiers? How can we rally our legislators? What can we do that actually makes a difference?
That's an amazing question. I was involved in a campaign through World Vision in Berlin. It just ended of recent. And this was partly one of the things I spoke to the house. They had a lot of politicians in the house. They invited their ministers and all this. And my question to them, actually wasn't a question. My statement to them was that first it started with firearm exportation. I use a gun called G3, which is made in Germany. I went and saw where they make it in Freiburg. And I asked myself, what if this gun wasn't made? Or what if it didn't end up in the wrong hand? So maybe it has to start with the responsible Western governments, because I say Western, not just because all the Westerns are responsible. Of course, Africans, we are killing each other too, but where do these guns originate from? Western, in a sense, these are the superpowers who make these guns. Try to monitor where the gun deliveries are aided. Try to monitor the end users of the guns, who are going to use it. Right now, we have these same atrocities in South Sudan. These people, it's already a genocide. Just the UN will take some time before they say it. But for me, I feel like it's already a genocide, because this is something that is within their internal border. This small nation that need peace more than anything else, after all that they suffered in Darfur, It is only getting worse because firearms is coming from everyone. And I feel right now that the longer war take, the more the firearm exporters can benefit because it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody have to sell their weapons. This is one point. The other point is we have to try as much and encourage counterfeit encourage dialogue. Sometimes political solutions, yes, they're good. Sometimes they're not. I'm not into politics as much, but from the ground of humanity, from the humanitarian ground, I believe you cannot kill fire with fire. You cannot go and start a war to us a dictator, because at the end of the day, the dictator is going to fly away from the country. But after the fight, the local people who are really have been oppressed enough are the one getting killed. These are the people who are on the battlefield. These are the innocent souls without a weapon to fight for themselves, to defend themselves. These are people who are being killed like insects.
Mm-hmm.
So if there can be a peaceful dialoguing, or at least a way, even if political, that does not involve the use of firearm, then it would be much, much better. It would, I'm sure, and this is the message I get in Berlin, that you rally your people. If you believe in change, change doesn't have to just happen. Change is love. If you love something, you're going to stand for it. If you feel in your heart that you can stand for something, that you want something done differently, you're going to rise up and say, this is enough. I want it done this way. This is out of love. If you can practice that human sense of love,
Mm-hmm.
then you can push forward your people. You can push forward the legislators. You can let them know how you feel through this. This is a democratic part of the world. The Western nations, they practice democracy, and it's functional because the people voices matters a lot. So people can rise above what they see in their day-to-day life. They can rise for people in Syria, the children who are being killed in the war that they don't even understand. If you ask them, they don't know the meaning of the war. In Afghanistan, in different parts of the world, Colombia. So these kids don't live near you. You don't see it every day. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It still happens. We can change what happens there that may not affect you directly, may not affect me directly, but it affects the entire world. So if we can stand and advocate for a peaceful way to solve a political problem, I think this will be a very, very big step forward. Guns never help.
Yeah.
Never.
And do you think that that's something that we advocate for within our own local government? Do you think that we can tell our local legislators, you know, that this is an issue and we want to see a peaceful resolution to it? And
well, I think basically your local government, this is like the decentralized system where the local government raises a concern and the concern goes to the central government, and the central government through their international corporations, they share in place in communities like the United Nations or the rest. So I think the local government is so fundamental in this. Fundamental in a sense, they have the voice, they can represent the people, they can oppose a bill. They can say this bill is going to make the world a better place, or this is not going to make the world a better place. They can propose a bill. They can propose a solution, because you come from, of course, I'm just giving the example in America. The American government is the most powerful in the world. When the American government says, this is enough, but they will never say it's enough unless it is in the interest of the local people. And the local people, their voices are heard through their local leaders. So if the local people speak, the local leaders would have to listen. That is if they want the votes. And if the local leaders listen, this is how your government is going to come out and say, this is it. The American people think it should be this way, and it's going to be this way, provided it is human enhancing, human ability enhancing, or life changing, which I believe this is what a lot of Americans want too, a peaceful community for every single individual.
yeah, that's really helpful. And to our community who's watching this, if there is ever any legislation that is pending within our local government, I will be sure to let you guys know and to send you some emails about it. And Innocent, if there's ever anything you hear of that you need people to rally around, like we're your people, we can definitely sign whatever we need to sign, tell our legislators we're ready to move. So finally, on the on the topic of how we can take action, one of the best ways we can do that is obviously financially. So are there any organizations that you are connected to that you know of that are doing an amazing job of educating, you know, individuals who are coming out of these situations, who are helping in the right ways? At this moment, Dressember doesn't support any organizations that are working directly with child soldiers, but it's something that we would love to do in the future. So I would love to hear your opinions and your thoughts on organizations that would be that would give more information, that would be able to provide resources.
Great. Well, this is a nice one. First, I would start with explaining, telling you a little bit about my wife and I, what we do exactly. We don't run an organization, so don't get me wrong. But what we did is that, you know, every single time since I moved here in 2016, every single year we have been going to Uganda at least once or twice. And the thing that I was so passionate about before I even met her was to help these children who are on the street. Now, the thing that pushed me to try to help these children is because these are the very kids who are in one way or the other related to either a former child soldier or a former soldier. And because after these people return, there's no after counselation program for them. There's nothing like after you leave the counseling center, you're going to, you know, get into this project or the government reintegrate you, put you in school, or there's nothing like that. So after they leave this is exactly what happened to me as well. Then they have to go back to a life worse than what they had with the LRA. So but they're human beings. They still go ahead and start a family, even when they don't have any idea of how to raise this family. And you know where the kids end? On the street. A lot of street children is increasing in Gulu. So what Anna and I have been doing is, the first time we went back in 2016, towards the end in December, we had a little saving where we went and said, you know, we're just going to have Christmas with the street children, because this would feel like, you know, a lot of people want to go to an expensive hotel, swim, or do something fancy because it's Christmas. But for us, that was the most fancy thing we did, to sit down with like tons of random street children we never knew. It felt like, you know, you feel the sense of love right in that moment. And this is something that we are passionate about and we want to continue doing. We went back in 2017 and we provided a little something for them, like footballs and stuff and some clothes we bought. But of course, we couldn't promise them anything. I believe so much. Even when we went back for our wedding, this was actually funny because some of our wedding guests thought it was a little bit crazy that we invited street children to our wedding. But then it was a way to make them feel like they have a family in some sense. Because they are family, yes, they're family to each other. But right now there's a high attack on them by the police, by people, because yes, they do a lot of crimes, criminal things they do, they steal. But the point is, do we have the strength to actually sit down and ask ourselves, why do they go to steal? Do we have the strength to ask ourselves, why do they attack people at night and steal their phones, steal their money wallets? No, nobody want to know that. Everybody want to say, we need justice. We need to arrest these street children. We need to lock them for the rest of our lives. We are tired. But these people are surviving. They want to survive, like me and you. But they don't have any other alternative. They don't have a paper. They don't have nothing. They have to steal. That is how they survive. So what Anna and I did was we organized another party for them over Christmas when we went this August. This 2018 December, and we had a little, you know, it was like a little music with them and dance and drink some sodas and. But then we want to do beyond that. We want to look for a way where we can say, we don't have to do it directly because we don't live there now, but we need people who can step in and say, we help this kid, put them in school, give them a second chance. I am a life example. I know how it feels to actually dream, to finally get that opportunity to be in school and dream and compete in a world of, you know, like move with the world, not be left some minutes behind and try to chase after the world. To have that ability that you feel in yourself, you can be anyone you want to be. This is all they need. So now, yes, back to your question. This is just the idea that Anna and I are working on, which I would advise so much. If this is something that you can take interest in, there's an organization called Surface Uganda, which is also a startup. It's not sound yet, but they deal directly, they work on the ground with the kids. It's not a big organization. They just have two rooms, one office and one. Basically, they're just 6-7 people who are running it. But their point is not expanding in the terms of bringing expensive laptop, buying a car, or this. They use their bikes, ride around, visit the street children in their hideouts during daytime, bring them in the office when they're sick, see that they meet their medical bills. They don't provide them all the foods or the clothes. Their priority is medical bill and porridge. Every day, at least drink a porridge. Whatever else you can survive on outside the center is okay. But if you can come to the office, take your porridge, when you're sick, they want to know, they want to help you. So you carry on because they don't have that opportunity to expand so quick. So this is one part of it to see. This is a small group that I'm interested in personally to help, and my wife too. But of course, there are other organizations that are also working with kids. Of course, we have, like I read there's one called Children Care Uganda. I've not learned so much about, but they also help orphans, try to help put them in school. But the funny part is, you've been to Gulu, you've seen. If you say orphan, then everyone is going to come up. If you say the word orphan, pretty much like 70% of the kids will come and say they need help because, and sometimes you think it's a joke, but it is so close to the truth, if not the truth. Because a lot of people are either divorced or just some of them don't know their parents or the parents are dead. So everyone is equally vulnerable. So they try to just help as much as they can, but they can't help the entire community. So there's a lot that can be done. And I'm going back in August with Anna to Uganda again because we've been in touch with our my primary school where I studied from before, and I've been doing some saving because, for example, there are a few kids. We paid 3 kids in this primary school because they couldn't register. Education has to cost money. They couldn't register to sit for their final primary examination, and that cost just 70,000 Uganda shillings to register, which is roughly like $25, and they couldn't afford it. And that would mean the 7 years span is useless. So we want to go and get in touch with the school, get to see the kids, and get to just, we forwarded them a pay to cover this registration because time was running out. But there's more than just that. After they finish their school, then what? There's nothing. After they finish primary, then it feels like, somebody opened your mind, then left you hanging. Then it's worse off. They should have given you the opportunity, So I would recommend so much if you could even do a direct one-on-one contact with these on-the-ground children through any there are people who can organize them. Even just 2 or 3 people can organize them. So you get a direct link to them and their school dues. If you can meet their school demands, this is the most effective change you can bring in their lives. Putting them in school, pairing them with a sponsor or something like that, directly or indirectly, it would be amazing. It will give them the hopes. This is the wealth that you can't steal once they have the knowledge. This is the wealth that they live with. They can rely on. It cannot get burned in their grass touch art because it's in their brain.
Yeah.
They can burn exactly.
Yeah. Education is so important. And we've seen just how you've pursued education, and it's really allowed you to dream again and to be the individual that you are today. And so I love that you said, supporting a child's education is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And to those of you watching this, I'm going to, I guess I can grab some links from you, Innocent, if you have any of organizations that are, helping children with their education, and I'll leave those in the comments so that you guys can explore that for yourself. And it would be a dream sometime in the future with December if we were able to support things like that. So those are all the questions that our community has asked you. But before we end this conversation, I want you to tell us a little bit about your book, maybe your dreams, where we can find your book, if people are interested in reading it, and just anything else that you want to leave us with.
Well, yeah. So my friend Kevin and I wrote a book. Kevin is from the U.S. as well, from North Carolina, originally from Ohio, but he lives in North Carolina. And you know, when he came to Uganda, we just got to know each other over our friend, mutual friend, who was my boss, and we talk about, you know, life, and we just got open to each other so quick, and we talk about my life, for example, and he talk about his life, and I started writing a little bit about myself, because I felt like that was also another way of getting out the emotions. So I've been writing every single thing I think about myself. I wrote down, but of course it was for my personal consumption and for my family consumption. And then he took interest in it when I gave him to read, and he said, you know, what do you think if I edit this thing and we can really, really reach out to a bigger audience? Because he knew when I told him that my dream is to let people understand that these child soldiers are not killers. These are people who are just forced to do what they didn't want, they didn't choose to do. They're not killers. They're no more human being like anyone else. Mm-hmm. And through that, I wanted to give them my life experience, how I was forced to be who I was not, who I was really not, just because I ate that gun in my hand. So I wanted to tell the world that the war happened, but the war did not define who I am. And so it's for the rest of the child soldiers. It will always happen unless something happened to stop it, but that should not be used to judge the kids who get out of it. So I wrote this book, Innocent, a Spirit of Resilience, which it just entailed my life from birth to current situation, well, until 2006 December, as I moved to Germany. So basically, you can find it on on our website, Innocent the book. It's just Innocent the book, or you can also get it on Amazon. It's on Amazon as well, and you can get through Ackway publishers. Basically, if you type Innocent, a Spirit of Resilience on Google, then it should give you all these options. And yeah, good luck to whoever wants to read it, and I hope you may get something out of it. You may learn something about Uganda or about a child soldier, because I believe the story of a child soldier is the same. The only difference is the name of the child soldier, pretty much, and maybe how the suffering unfolded, because pretty much it's all about suffering. So it will open your eyes and learn more about the suffering of child soldiers all across the world in war-torn areas.
Amazing, amazing. And I'll leave that link down as well so that people can just find that directly. Innocent, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for wanting to interview me for this. And I love speaking to people. I love telling my stories. Not like I get pride out of it, but I love to make people open up their minds, open up their eyes, and realize that there's a lot they can do that they never even believed they could. There's so much you can change as an individual. And this feeling, I feel like I take 90% of the pleasure, usually.
Well, we feel really honored that you would take the time to speak with us. And I'm going to stop the recording, and then, we can say our goodbyes. But I just want to say thank you for your time and for sharing with us.
Thank you.